Hey, my name's Taylor Phelan, and I'm hanging out with Rob on Front Row Live.
Going into this debut EP, you went into the studio with Josh as the producer. Tell me what it was like producing or creating this music with him.
Man, I mean, Josh Niles, he's a real wizard. I haven't ever found a producer that I've worked with that I have felt so comfortable relinquishing so much creative control. Naturally, as an artist, like I have a vision. I have like, you know, I just want to like hold my project really closely.
Right.
But I could tell, I mean, pretty early on with us working together that he was. I mean, he was stretching me, and he was thinking he's better than I am. You know, he's a producer. You know, so he was able to like see what I was going for,
right.
and then really take it to the next level. And so it's hard because I wrote all the songs on the record, and he and I actually did co-write a few of the tunes. Mm-hmm. But you know, I mean, he's all over it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, in the same way, he's just as much in it, and the band and stuff are just as much in it as I am. You know,
Right.
and so, I feel like it's a little unfair sometimes for me to be sitting here doing the interview and taking all the credit for the way that it sounds, because it really was just a collaborative effort.
Right. So the band that you have on stage with you and on tour, it's the same guys that actually recorded on the record.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we all recorded on the record, and we traveled together. I mean, it really is more of, I'm a band guy,
yeah.
You know, and really the voice kind of forced me into being a solo artist, right. You know. But we really do have a band dynamic, and it's a democracy in a lot of ways. Like you know, the direction that Taylor Phelan is going. Right. And the sound that's developed, like I really try to be open-handed with that and let everyone's you know, voice kind of be heard, and because I in a perfect world we would just be a band, right. But you know what I mean, it's Taylor Phelan, and that's really just the name.
Well, now you kind of make me wonder, is this band the same band as the Canes?
One of the guys.
Okay.
Yeah, so Micah and I started the Canes in Chicago.
Okay.
Like 9 years ago now, or something.
Jeez. Time flies, man. Like.
Yeah. And so he after The Voice, when I started like assembling a new band, he's the first guy that I called, because we'd obviously worked together and toured together, and right. He was the first person I thought of. So yeah, so he's sitting right over there, right. You know, in the band. So yeah.
So you finished The Voice and you started doing your solo project. But what was it about the solo project that made you want to stick with it, knowing that, you know, you've had that experience with the band, you enjoy the band scene?
Yeah, I think that's where, you know, The Voice comes into play. Like, just practically, I mean, Taylor Phelan's social media channels, you know, right. Have like 20-some-odd thousand followers now, you know what I mean, because of that. So there is like a name recognition after The Voice that I had. So it was a little bit tough, entertaining the idea of, you know, like having a band name. It felt a little tough, you know. And also, you know, I mean, there's other parties that participate in that conversation, like the label, you know, and right. They were like, hey, we're signing Taylor Phelan, we're not signing a band, you know, like you're the one with the platform right now, and you're the one that we're interested in pushing. And so, you know, I think it was just, more than anything, I think it was a practical decision, more than like like something I wanted to do, you know. And you know, I mean, there's still like, I mean, we all know solo artists and bands that, you know, the front man breaks away and has a solo career, and then, you know, dabbles in other projects, and that's always, you know, an interest of mine. Like I have a lot of I'm interested in doing a lot of different kinds of music,
and it's great for your creativity too. Like, yeah. You experience different things all at once.
Yeah, a lot. Having more than one outlet, I think, is always like a palate cleanser, you know.
So coming into the studio for this EP, what was different this time around, since you have experienced producing in a different kind of atmosphere?
I think that there was. This is the first. So even with the Canes, like I think that that was like the last batch of recordings that I released, you know, and that I had been involved in.
Right.
And I think. I mean, I was older. I'm older now, and I you know I've like matured in like my songwriting, and my level of expectation is just higher, you know. And so there was that in it, you know. I mean, it was just the entire project as a whole was being approached a little bit more professionally,
Right.
and a little bit more thoughtful. But even that, like, I'd be lying if I said we're not still just figuring it out, you know. And like,
Right.
you know, we're even since. Like, even right this minute, you know, like, there's things that we want to do differently and change, and you know, and in some ways it's like, we're ready to move on to the next record, you know what I mean? And this just got released.
Part 2 of 2.
Yeah, part 2 of 2. So, like, we're ready to move on to the next one and keep going and keep pushing and developing, because we're still growing and changing. And
Right.
so I don't know, man. It's hard to say, like, what. Outside of that, what was different? Other than, I mean, like I said, Niles is the best producer I've ever worked with. So, like, working with, like, a real producer, a guy whose brain is, like, you know, big picture. Like, I just remember, like, being in the studio sometimes, and he'd be like, "Hey, I got this idea. Like, what if we did this?" And I'm like, I don't like that. I don't know if I like that. And he's like, "All right, give me, like, 5 minutes just to mess with it." And so, you know, he'd have me in the vocal booth or anybody, you know, and he'd be like, "Do something like this." And so he'd have me back there going like, "Ooh, ooh, ooh," you know, or whatever. I don't know, something totally foolish. And then he'd like bury it in the mix and affect it and throw some like crazy reverb on it, and then it becomes like a part, you know, like a piece in there. And so he's great at seeing like where the song could go, like can go, you know. So,
now,
yeah.
you mentioned earlier that like he kind of stretched you in this recording process.
Yeah.
How did he do that? How did he like challenge you in a way?
Yeah, I mean, this is on the last, like, a handful of the tunes that we worked on. We actually brought in a vocal producer. So there was, which I've never worked with a vocal producer before, but she came in, and I mean, she's got a crazy awesome voice too. So it helps that I like love her as an artist, you know.
Right.
But Daniela Mason is her name. You should check out her stuff. She's awesome. But Daniela Mason, she came in and she did vocal producing, and so essentially she'd be sitting in the control room, and you know, like, it's different when two vocalists are talking to one another, you know, because like she'd have an idea, she'd say, "Hey, what if you tried something like this," you know, and I'd be like, "Okay, give me an example," and she would sing it back to me, like she'd sing the idea to me in a way that I would have never like sang it, you know what I mean? But then it gave me an idea, and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that's cool, that's really cool." But then I would take it and interpret it and sing it back to her, and she was like, "Well, that's not what I was saying, but that's awesome, that's cool," you know what I mean? So there's like a back and forth, and I've never worked with a vocal producer before, so that's just one way of like stretching and like being able to you know, have like a conversation about like how the music is developing, and again, like I was saying too, like I feel like I've always had like a closed-fisted, you know, approach to recording the music that I'm making, and it's like, wow, that's not the idea. I had this is the idea. Let's just do this, you know. But this one it has been more open-handed, and it's been great.
That's awesome. So. I mean, like I said, the record, I love the way it sounds. I love all the tracks on there. What made you want to just stick with an EP? Because I'm sure you had more music recorded or written. But what made you want to stick to an EP for your, you know, the introduction of your music?
Yeah. Again, a practical decision. We recorded 14 songs, and I mean, just the way that the industry works and people consume music right now, it's just so fast. Sure. So we, you know, rather than releasing it all at once, we broke it up, and that's the real reason.
Hey, it works. It works for me. Now let's talk about "Settle Down." That's the single right now.
Yeah.
Tell me about this song, because the meaning of it. I was watching your behind the scenes for the creating the music video,
Yeah.
and you were specific about the director because you wanted to get that exact point across. Tell me a little bit about "Settle Down."
Yeah. It's probably one of the more message-driven tunes I have probably ever written. I co-wrote it with Josh Niles, so the producer. And I mean, the song is really about like our human nature, right? It's about how we interact with one another, like people interacting with one another is always, kind of messy. That's just like human nature. Yeah. And we have conflicts and we have disagreements, and Settle Down is, kind of standing in the middle of all of those disagreements and just asking for a little bit of peace and like compromise. You know what I mean? Like, let's all we get so into our like own like beliefs and ideas, and we get wrapped up in how we feel about something that we just like dehumanize the people who disagree with us. Right. and I think it's a real problem that we don't know how to disagree. Like, we don't know how to disagree with one another and work through that disagreement and say, like, okay, so acknowledge the disagreement. It's okay to disagree. I'm not suggesting that life should just be like all happy and bubbly. You know what I mean? That's not real. But there is a way to disagree and to still work together and kind of and find some common ground. And so Settle Down's in the middle of all of that. And depending on who you talk to, I mean, there certainly are some political undertones, to the song. But it can really be applied to any scenario, whether that's like corporate America to a marriage to anything, race relations, to anything. I mean, it really can be picked up and applied to all of that. So it's really just a song about asking for compassion and a little bit of peace.
And the fact that it's so like message driven, was that a hard song to really write down, to really create? Just because, like you said, it could be political, it could be marriage, it could be race, it could be so many different things. Yeah.
To be honest, no. It was a song that I'm a writer that it takes me a long time to actually, like, most songs, it takes me a long time to get them to where I feel comfortable calling them done, because I like edit and I change them in real time, and I mean, I have a song that I have like half a verse written for a year. It's like I just can't. The full vision of the song hasn't like revealed itself to me yet. But Settle Down, I mean, Niles and I started working on the instrumentation of it, and I sat down and like cranked the song out and the lyrics out in like 20 minutes. Wow. So it's just like once it started coming out, it just it felt like it made sense, which the whole process, even picking it to be the first single, was like that. It was just like, well, this is really timely. Right. And maybe this is the first single, and then it just kind of developed that way, and it just happened. So
I think it was a good call.
Yeah, I even still, I'm like, even as time goes on, I'm like, yep, it's still relevant, even more relevant. Yep.
I think it'll be a while before it's not relevant anymore.
Yeah, so it just kind of happened.
For those that haven't heard your music yet, what is your music all about?
Oh, I think that I would say the majority of the songs on One of Two and upcoming Two of Two, I would say a common thread is it's probably has to do with like our response to something, right? it's like, how will we respond? Who will we choose to be? You know, and that's not like, you know, that's not necessarily the message, but if I had to like pick a message that's most common, I don't know, the common thread, it's probably that, like, just our response to things. We have a choice to we have a choice in the way that we respond to people, to what life hands us, and so